The Lost Signals looks at
This
horror films
is God.
that were the early roles of famous actors.
You've been
And another Halloween sequel.
I think Michael is under the influence of an evil rune.
With in-depth analysis,
Trite, rhetorical, cliched, inane.
adult content,
Sniff it or he shoots you.
adult language,
He played pogo on his life.
and spoilers.
My birth cry will be the sound of every phone on this planet ringing in unison.
Join us.
Hello, and welcome to MOTS-O-Ween. We're back with a discussion of another horror movie that involves a rising star this year. And we're talking about the original Nightmare on Elm Street for reasons that we will discuss shortly. Let me throw it, before introductions, let me throw it to Rich for a funny lifeline, because I like to mix things up.
Are you there, God? It's me, Johnny Depp.
Hey, there he is. This is Johnny Depp's, first of all, introducing Johnny Depp.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm your host, Steve Ramosi, joined tonight by Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Richard Maurice Berry.
Doing?
And Chris Morgan.
Dream a little dream. I wish I had a fedora to tip to the camera. What I got
Oh
today.
man, it's one of us should have worn a fedora. I have so many fedoras at home. as you can tell by looking at me. But in lieu of fedoras, let's just start off talking about the plot with Ian.
So once upon a time, a bunch of parents burned a pedophile alive
As you do.
because you got away on technicality and law, which is actually how it's done.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you do.
And he comes back as a dream demon to hunt down the children of the parents who burned him alive, killing some people, including Johnny Depp,
Mm-hmm.
and setting one of the great horror villains upon the world.
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of Nightmare on Elm Street series. And so this is one of the actual things where I'm probably going to be nostalgic about. I adore these films, from the decent ones to the schlocky, terrible ones.
Right.
I like a good one-liner when I kill people. I mean, when my villains kill people. And so I will say that this has the feel of that era 80s movie, and also an early work by a director, meaning that he put in a lot of practical effects, put in a lot of budget limitations. Oddly enough, it's weird to say that it doesn't have the polished Hollywood feel of the later ones. It does feel very much of a beginning horror movies of the series, and I usually find those the best. But overall, the narrative of this is a fairly simple narrative. It doesn't go into any of the backstory that the later movies would, and but nor is it a great narrative masterpiece. So I think a 2 right down the line.
That's probably the score I'm going to give it. So the idea of this movie, right, is that, like, you find out very early that there's someone trying to kill these teenagers in their sleep, and they actually, to their credit, realize it very early, which I'll give this movie a bunch of credit for. Like, they're not, like, dumb to the terms of the movie, as a lot of horror movies seem to do.
That's a good point.
And, well, I won't say they. The main character, Nancy, is not dumb to the terms. Like, the rest of them are kind of idiots about it. But like, it seems like the movie does a good job of like having a simple plot of and you know, like everything you know about Freddy Krueger you get from later movies. Like, this doesn't reveal much about him at all, to be honest.
He doesn't really have much of a personality.
Like, you don't see him very much. And, like...
Well, he's a little bit, I think, more sexual in this one than he is on the later one. Because it always has a feel of... With women, yes, but also, like, the slow crawl of the noose around the guy's neck.
Yeah.
It feels like he's a predator, more so than a comedian who enjoys killing people.
Right. Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And, like, you know, the interesting thing about this is you don't really... It doesn't go super hard into his backstory. You learn a lot about that in, like, later movies, which we're not talking about. What you know in this is there's something trying to kill these teenagers in their dreams. And... the adults don't believe them, which is like a staple of a lot of, I think, horror movies. You know, like the adults don't believe the kids until it's too late, and like I think this probably sets the stage for a lot of those ones that came out in the later '80s, because this was 83, 82? 84. So like, you know, this is Wes Craven. I guess beginning, like, not beginning, because he had, what was the movie he had?
Last House on the Left,
Last House
which was
on the Left.
72.
Which was much earlier than this. But this is, like, him beginning his, like, rise to real, like, fame, I guess, in terms of the horror movie. And, the plot of this is really interesting. It's just a straight up like horror scene movie, without revealing too much about, like, just revealing as much as it has to about the villain, right? And I think that that's interesting. Like, you don't know that much, and it lets you fill in the blanks for yourself. And like, later movies, of course, in this series, fill in a lot of the other blanks for you, of like what he is. But like, there's one scene where there's an exposition dump about what he did, and like, you know, he killed at least 20 children or something like that. Like, yeah. I think they say, and that's basically it. And but like, it's really fascinating to see how everybody deals with that with this movie without knowing that for most of the movie. Like, that's the last 15 minutes of the movie, I think, that gets revealed. And like, other than that, it's just these kids trying to figure out what's going on. And I think you're right. I think it deserves a 2. It's certainly not a 3 movie in terms of plot, but it gets a 2 from me.
Yeah, especially for movies so iconic as this, and that have been paid homage to or aped as far as like tropes and different scares and stuff like that. It's hard to watch these films, having watched so many like it, to like judge it based off of like, oh, this was the first of its kind, or like it was revolutionary at the time. And I found it a little difficult to get engaged in the beginning, and also having seen like so many of the sequels, like, this is my first time seeing this movie from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And same. Like, having seen all the sequels and like knowing a lot more information than the characters do, it was like a little tough for me to like see them like struggle with. What were we gonna say?
Well, I'm gonna comment, because really this is a movie that the narrative draw here is a mystery, which is, what is the motive behind this killer? Because they hint at it throughout. You know that the parents know something here, and you're. This wasn't like, I've seen all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, but when I first started, it was Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child, those.
All the dreamies.
Yeah, way more. So I knew his backstory. I wondered what it'd be like going into this movie the first time, not having any of the backstory, and knowing if I would have been more engaged with the narrative, with not having that mystery solved.
Right.
Interesting thing to think. I will never know because I went into this series knowing everything about it.
Yeah. So filtering it through that and like seeing it as a mystery. Trying to figure this guy out. I'm still gonna have to give it a 2.
Yeah.
Because the beginning, and this is purely me coming off of like modern horror. The beginning was just too slow paced for me.
Yeah.
So that when it really got to the meat and potatoes, like after Rod got hung in his cell, like I think that's really where I started finding my enjoyment.
Engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what you said before about him being more of a predator in this one, and that's definitely it. I saw this, I didn't see it in the theater, but we rented it as soon as it was available back in the old days where we had VCRs. And I remember right away, like the Tina's second drink where he's walking up and there's an arrow. I'm sorry, we're outside and I live near an airport.
Hey, we're in the south side.
We're south side. And, oh crap, this was.
You had your
So when he's
you're a Betamax and
when he's approaching Tina in the driveway and his arms go out like 3 or 4 times the size. He's wearing the striped sweater. Like that was always my nightmare as a kid. Was the boogeyman? Except imagine him except he was a mime. That's the way I was.
A mime?
Yeah.
I love it.
Mine's a clown.
Silent killer.
Exactly. That's exactly.
You can trap him in a box.
I mean, but going into this, like I really love movies like Aliens. I love the first Alien. I love Alien. I like a nice slow burn. This one, seeing it for the first time, really did provide a mystery. You really did see a lot of things you didn't see before. I mean, with regard to pacing, and yeah, it's not a perfect narrative, but it's a damn solid one, and I give it a very strong 2.
Strong 2?
I agree with you.
Fair enough. Alright, so that seems like 2s across the board. Rich, why don't you talk about
Themes. Are there any? There are.
There are.
Poor communication kills.
You're right.
A lot of... Actually, all of the murders that are successful are due to information not being passed from child to parent or parent to child.
Or a motherfucker being woken up.
Yeah, or anybody being woken up. It's hard to say whether or not things would have been avoided if the parents had been honest with the kids. But
it wouldn't have, because it's inherently it's weird because I think in a lot of ways this story would have worked better with kids. The fear of not being believed by your parents and the fear of the monster under the bed.
Yes.
Yeah. Where I think, though, is that this deals with suburban terror in the sense of what lies beneath. Not the movie, but the concept.
So it's like
the parents have something that they're hiding.
Yeah.
They have a past. They're trying to build an idyllic life, but
and they haven't prepped their kids for it, right? Yeah.
It's like the demons of suburbia have been trying to drag
This movie is very much like a ghost story too, where the vengeful dead, not necessarily having to be a killer, it's what the guilty parents gifted to their children was this manifestation. It does have a really nice. I think that's one of the draws of this film is that it is very much in a lot of ways a ghost story as well.
I think. Well, I was going to say I think there's a fascinating thing too about like the the voyeurism of like watching somebody get murdered is a big part of like why people die in this film, right? Like the first kill is like a boyfriend not waking up his girlfriend from a obviously horrible dream, and then he sees her get slashed across the fucking chest. Like, you know, like she is clearly having a bad time. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you fucking reach over and like try to
shake
wake
her out
her
of it,
up,
yeah.
or like try to do something?
Well, I mean, she's going through the exorcist stuff here. Like, she's floating around hitting you in the head.
No. I mean, before she starts like jumping up into the fucking ceiling.
Yeah, like he jumps he jumps out of bed.
He sees that she's having a bad time, and he gets out of bed, pulls a blanket off of her, watches her go through some shit for a while, and then she gets thrown up into the ceiling and like dragged across the whole thing. Like, it's so weird. Like, I was yelling at the screen at the time when it was happening. Like,
I was there.
Why aren't you? You were. But like, I was like, why aren't you like waking her up? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
I can forgive that because you never know how you're going to respond to a scene like that. You can talk about bravado all you want, but until you're in a situation like that, you have no idea.
So that's exactly what it is. It's like the idea of like not knowing how people would respond to something like that. But like in this movie, they respond. I will say like the one drawback of that is like in this movie they respond in a very like generic way. Like they all respond the same way. Seeing somebody like thrashing around in their dreams, they just like stand back and like watch it happen. And like it's really strange to me. And like if I saw that, maybe I wouldn't, but I feel like I would try to shake the person awake or whatever.
I definitely would. I have seen that.
And like, yeah, exactly. Like, you know, like I've seen like people going through bad times in their sleep and like being like, wake the fuck up, like what's going on? And I get it. It's the nature of the type of movie that this is, that they have to like allow it to happen to some degree to like show what's going on. But like, you know, you can have that happen with a person who's alone or whatever. I guess it's not necessarily into the themes. It's just a nitpick that I have with the movie.
It kind of follows with like what he was saying, what Ian was saying, with exactly how everybody else treats these murders and the happenings going on. Like her mom, even after seeing her get phantom slash marks on her arm, pull a fedora out of her,
immediately tells her to go to sleep.
Yeah,
right.
Out of thin air, she's like, "Oh, we're gonna get you to sleep."
It's denial.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that it's so strong that they show the mother being alcoholic, the parents' a marriage failing, and her father being so drawn to his work, he's not there. It's the repercussions of the parents killing Freddy, or Frederick Krueger, if you will, that they can't cope with being a strong.
Also, side note, how hard do you have to bury yourself into your job in a small suburban town
as a cop?
Where nothing happens.
Well, like I think the interesting thing that we just touch upon, which does touch upon things, is like the idea that I think a lot of what's going on in this movie is like the disassociation that parents have with their kids, and like not understanding what their kids are going through, despite the fact that they know where their kids' traumas are coming from. And like I think that's the most fascinating thing in this movie is like the idea that you not only know where your kid's trauma is coming from, but you have caused it. Like, whether you wanted to or not, like, as a parent, the idea is that you, as a parent, cause your kids some trauma and you don't want to, right? Like, the idea is, like, parents fuck up their kids no matter what, even if they have the best of intentions for them. And even if they try as hard as they can, you're gonna fuck up your kid in some way. And, like, the idea that you try to, like, it's your choice whether you try to like shield them from that or like bury that or like expose it. That's gonna either prepare them for what's to come, right? Like for what they're gonna have to deal with, or kind of like leave them unprepared for that eventual realization that they have to deal with the shit that their parents have done, like, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's, like, I think that's a big thing of this movie, and, like, you know, I don't know if Wes Craven was going for that when he wrote this, but, like, it's clearly, like, there.
I think there's enough there to suggest, because it's almost a poor man Stephen King novel.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough there for me, perhaps it's a nostalgia thing, to give it a 1.
I'm gonna give it a 1. I can. What are you guys?
Are you giving that
whispering
whiskey a 1 or themes a 1?
The whiskey and themes. Get a 1.
All right. Sounds good, Chris.
The whiskey and the themes each get a 1.
All right. 1's all around. Let's go to Antagonists with me. Frederick Krueger.
Froderick?
Frederick, yeah. The original pronunciation.
Frederick Frankenstein.
By me.
Might as well be a Frankenstein. It was a version of fire.
Yeah. I still think it's his Hollywood name. Like, he changed his name when he went to Hollywood. But Fred Krueger, so I don't think they say this, right? But, like, he was originally a janitor, and, like, he has this whole fucking crazy backstory that, like, gets fleshed out throughout the rest of the movies. But all you know in this movie is that he murdered at least, I believe it's at least 20 kids.
That fucking blew my mind. Like,
I was like, at least?
How can you, like, after the first 2 kids disappear, like, shouldn't you just be on the lookout?
What a thing to say.
Because he's the nice janitor from school. He wouldn't do anything. This is a nice town.
20 fucking kids.
How many kids? This seems like a small town. How many kids do they have to spare?
You would never have gotten away with more than 1 or 2 murders.
We don't see the wrong side of the track.
You know what, though? Maybe if you're a badass as Freddy Krueger was, you get away with 20 kids.
Maybe he just, like, took out a whole playground one day.
Yeah.
But wait, did they
kill them all in, like, a week?
But
you
did
know?
they say how long a time period this was? Because it could have been 20 kids over like 10 years.
I mean,
who the hell knows?
He constructed knife fingers because he was getting so bored just kidnapping kids.
He made a glove of knives. He was like before Edward Scissorhands came out. He was like, I'm gonna figure out an Edward Scissorhands contraption.
I like to believe
murder children.
I like to believe that the sweater and the hat were part of his uniform. Like, he was maybe like a fan of like of comics back in the day, where he's just like, he sees a shadow and he's just like, that guy, he's got it.
I honestly think that he's, I don't know. I honestly think he had the sweater and the hat beforehand, and he was like looking to
accessorize with a claw.
Yeah. He was like, let me see what I can do.
Michael Jackson was big around the time.
Let me see what I can do with this. Michael Jackson, I like his glove. Let me put some swords on this. No, like Freddy Krueger is interesting because we talked about this already. Like, Freddy Krueger, he wasn't on screen much, and like you didn't see much of him, right? Like, he was
you didn't even like see his. You never got really a good look at his face either.
Right.
Even after he was pulled into.
It was a lot of like
shadow,
drippy, like you don't really see him. Like, it's later movies that you get what you know of Freddy Krueger, right? Like, this is like they're hiding it, almost like Doctor Who style. You don't show.
They're really leaning into.
You don't show the villain as much.
Yeah.
Like. And I think it does well in this movie.
Yeah, they really lean into the boogeyman aspect of him.
Yeah, he's fucking creepy. I'll give him that. Like, and I think that it does a good job showing that, even if it doesn't do a good job laying down the rules of what Freddy Krueger can do.
But here's the thing: is they needed to. They did lay down the rules because Nancy played the rules, and she figured it out as she went along. Granted, yeah. We can come up with 1,000 alternatives to or questions.
Yeah,
but I think it actually did hold down the effect that Freddy had over reality and dream, and also the fact that it blends. It questions a lot of what is reality and what is the dream world throughout this.
Yeah,
unlike in later works.
That's what I like about it. It does like make you question when reality takes effect, when it doesn't, and like I guess even at the end they're trying to play at that.
Nancy's still captured in Freddy's dream world.
Yeah, even though it's clear that she is in the dream world after that. Like they do this like very much brighter filter on it and everything, but like
she never notices the fog.
Yeah, but like they do it subtly enough where it's a nice little transition. So like I like Freddy as a villain in this. Obviously, I mean, it's the villain that you remember. It's a villain that you remember. Like the original Nightmare on Elm Street. There were a million horror movies in the 80s. Who do you remember? Freddy, Jason, and Michael. And those are the ones you remember, right?
Chick from Sleepaway Camp.
Oh
Pinhead.
My god. Don't remind me about
I guess
that.
Pinhead is another one. But like Pinhead is like
Jack Frost.
Pinhead is a second
Santa
tier.
Claus from multiple movies.
Jack Frost, second tier. Santa Claus from my dreams as a child. But like,
I feel like Pinhead's not really much of a villain, more of like a businessman.
Cenobites in general. So.
Well, like Pinhead, like I feel like Freddy, Jason, Michael are the three 80s villains that are really like top tier villains, and like
Reagan,
of course.
Thatcher.
Well, if you're British, Thatcher, sure. But like like in terms of horror movies, those are real life villains, which are much more scary. But like it's those three that really come through for 80s movies. If you had to name three 80s like horror villains, I think those are the three that you would name first. And like probably Freddy first. Like I think he comes to mind. And like honestly, this is the first time I've seen this movie all the way through, and I appreciate it. But I was never like a big horror movie fan, so like I've watched all three of the original, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween within the last 12 years or something. It was the first time that I've seen all three of them, right? Like so, like, and I'm a million years old, so like it's interesting to see the genesis of this villain, and I think it does a good job of like in this first movie. It's interesting to see how little he's like in it, and how big of an effect he has on the the protagonists or the supporting characters that are in it, and how much he fucks with them, and I love that. So I'm gonna give him
Chris.
Sorry, I talked too long.
I'm giving him one.
If I may, I know, it's just that what I know about Freddy from this is that he's not a godly man, and he's a sexual predator. And that's all I needed. He's terrifying in a lot of ways. This is your god now. It's a great luck.
Sorry, my microphone wasn't on before. Yeah, I gave Freddy one, but where he's like, this is God?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Rich?
Solid villain.
Yeah.
Definitely worth a one.
I feel like an asshole. I talked for way too long on that one.
Happens.
Yeah. Alright, so let's go on to protagonists. Chris.
And that'll be Nancy, and I'm giving her one, and I think Ian gave the best. Reason why is because she figures out the rules, and that's what the third act is her executing all those. She is a very effective protagonist. She really twigs to what's going on, and she's willing to face it. So not only is, we learn along with her, she's a really, in terms of like textbook protagonist, she's a really good protagonist. I'm giving her a very strong one.
I was going to say she goes full Kevin McAllister on Freddy.
She
but
does.
She predates him.
Yeah. Kevin McAllister's going full Nancy
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the Wet Bandits.
No
Jesus
doubt.
Christ.
The fucking Wet Bandits.
I'd watch Freddy vs. the Wet Bandits.
I would too.
I wish.
Oh my god, he wouldn't be able to kill them because they're practically immortal in
They're
real life.
immortal. They can't die.
It would just be him.
They
pulling
both
a
can't die.
Yeah.
Like they're both like pulling crazy shit on each other. So Wet Bandits like just not dying, and him being like, "What the fuck?" Sorry, go on.
But yeah, I definitely give Nancy a 1. She hits all my checklists for a great protagonist in a horror movie, where she like twigs to the rules immediately. She faces the problem instead of running away from it, and does as much work as she can to prepare herself for the final showdown. Also, and like this is my first time seeing it in the movie, I did not know that she had an entire dream fight with Freddy off camera.
Off camera, right?
And then like shows up with his hat. She's like, I took this wrong.
Took his fucking hat.
And it's got his name in here, so now I know who he is. Nah.
It's got his name. That was the best part. Had his name in the hat. That's how she found out
It's like,
who
who's
he was.
Frederick Krueger? How do you know that name?
So I am going to. So here's the thing: we had a little technical snafu,
And another one.
and
another one. And
another one. I was going to mention a second.
It's almost
And another one.
nightmarish. if
It's
you ask me.
I feel like I'm in multiple
Should have got
levels
DJ Khaled for this.
of nightmares, similar to that movie that we recently saw, whatever it was called. But like, it's I think that Nancy did a good job. I'm gonna give Banks a 1, and I'm gonna agree with all you guys. So we're gonna give Protag a 1. Move on to supporting Ian.
Nancy was surprisingly genre savvy. And although I do like John Saxon, right?
Yeah.
I thought he did actually a good job with what bit role he had in this. I don't think I could give this a 1. I mean,
Did it feel to you like he was reined in?
A little bit.
interesting. Yeah.
'Cause it seemed like he wanted to, like he was trying to play the character more.
He was ready to chew scene,
Yeah.
and they were like, "No, get out of here."
And I think it would have been better if he chewed a little bit sooner, right? And the other thing is, like, I think mostly you remember the deaths. And that's good for a horror film. But you can't with, like, what do you, even Johnny Depp. I mean, no. It didn't necessarily work for me, and most of them are very forgettable. So, no, I have to give it a 0.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting to try and look at these supporting characters and like evaluate them, but the fact remains that most of them are forgettable, and I think that throughout most 80s horror movies, this is the case where it's like you have these supporting characters only to play scenery to your protagonist and antagonist. And so for that, I'm going to give it a 0.
Yeah, I did not like most of the supporting characters in this movie. And they added nothing other than the deaths. And I guess the exposition, kind of. It was like filtered through the ramblings of a drunken woman. But
I might. Oh, that I forgot about her. The mother was actually fairly interesting, if only because she was a lifetime movie mother.
she seemed like she was in like the wrong movie.
Yeah.
I love that she had booze hidden in her bed.
She had booze hidden throughout the house.
But the other thing is, like, the fact that you forgot
Except
about
the
her.
boiler.
To your point, it's almost the opposite. she went a little too far, where John Saxon wasn't allowed to go far enough.
Yeah.
And a balance between the two would work.
But yeah, Nancy was not only the star of the show, but took all of the competence from everyone else.
Everyone else was super incompetent. What do you think, Chris?
This one I was back and forth on because obviously, like Ian, I want to give John Saxon one, but something once again, Ian, something you said earlier was the fact that this woman was in such denial. This event had destroyed their marriage, and she became this. Well, there's no secret about the fact that she's an alcoholic, and so it's interesting where, like, I would like to have seen a lot more of John Saxon. I actually think they did a really good job doing Nancy's parents of demonstrating what a troll it really was. So I'm going to give it a 1 because of Nancy's parents.
Fair enough. I'm going to stick with 0. Everybody else, I assume, is going to also do that.
0.
But
I don't believe
Chris,
you, Chris.
very good argument. Very good argument. If anyone wants to change their score, tell me now. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Yeah. I'm going to move on to dialogue rich.
So, coming into this movie, having seen the later films, I was expecting Freddy to have a lot more one-liners.
Yeah!
And there were very few to be found. In this film, like, he was, all of his like, a lot of his dialogue was, like, generic.
I think there's only one really,
killer.
really good one that he had, which is "This Is God."
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the only one that I
And
really.
like, I was like, all right, that's a good start.
Yeah.
And then he didn't really have anything after that. As far as that, there are really like no other lines that.
He didn't really become a comfortable dream serial killer at this point.
No.
Right.
I feel like this is like Freddy's origin story as a serial killer.
He's learning
like,
the ropes.
Like he's been killing children this entire time. He's like never really had to test out his material.
Right.
And like he hasn't like he just graduated to teenagers.
He wasn't a comedian serial killer yet. He was just a regular old serial killer.
Yeah.
Didn't have to fucking throw out one-liners as he killed people at this point. So he was testing out his material.
Just like the glove, which he had to build to keep himself entertained. He was killing so many teenagers that he's like, might as well start dropping one-liners. But that doesn't make him a very interesting villain dialogue-wise.
No.
The glove
and then, like, everything
did fit. No one could have quit.
Also, yeah, there was, on top of not having that, everything else is pretty paint by numbers, murder mystery, horror movie.
Yeah, dream killer.
Yeah. Dialogue was like means to an end. There was nothing like memorable.
I can see that.
I think even worse is there is some, hey, what are the teens saying now as an old man died?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, Craven was, or whoever wrote the script was like really reaching into the bag of like, what are these 80s teens saying?
We even called it out with Rod's character, who's like a holdover from Craven's days as a teenager, where he's like wearing his greaser gear in 1980s California. Almost like
it was explained by his father wearing that at his funeral.
Yeah, I guess.
On.
I was half expecting it to end up at a fucking malt shop or sock hop or.
God, I wish. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I'm giving the dialogue a 0 because as much credit as I gave Nancy's parents, what was verbally stated wasn't, except for a couple minor lines, nothing really was great.
Alright, so it's 0s for...
Did he even say bitch in this movie?
No, he didn't say bitch once.
Wow.
How dare he?
Oh, man.
I feel dirtier for saying it. than he had to feel throughout the entire movie for saying. But so that's 0, 0, 0. I haven't spoken about it yet, and I am going to say my piece by saying I'm also going to leave 0, and I don't think I have to say much more. You guys have said everything I want to say, so let's move on to me with style. The style of this movie is fascinating. I really, actually kind of love it. There are a couple of scenes where Ian, you elucidated how they did the scenes, and it made me way more interested in them, where they had an upside-down room, and, like, they had shit going on the ceiling, like people being dragged across the ceiling and things like that, or, like, blood being sprayed onto the ceiling. That was, like, the way they did this was they just turned the camera upside down, basically, and I think that's fascinating. I think that that's a really interesting way to do things. I think that they did a lot of cool stuff with the style of this movie. And Chris, I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds by saying I think they did a great job with the soundtrack as well. I thought the score was awesome. So I'm going to give this a 1 and let everybody else talk.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the practical effects in this one. And I am a very big fan of practical effects when they're done well. And the 80s were a very good playground for movies and special effects groups to just...
Especially horror movies, right?
Especially horror movies.
Yeah.
To just, like, be cutting edge and making things look as realistic as possible. Or as, like, if they're going for unrealistic, to look as close to realistic as possible.
As insane as possible sometimes.
And to frighten you. And, yeah, there's some things that didn't really mesh well.
Sure.
Like, Freddy's first appears with the elongated arms. That was... I'm sorry.
Looks silly.
That was just... I would have laughed myself awake if I had seen that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like... Sort of like, some of his kills, especially the ones where they had to turn the room around, which was very interesting, especially, like, seeing her... Like, the scenes where she's dragged across the room, and, like, you know that it's because the room's upside down, which means they had to have harnessed her boyfriend, and the way they chose to have the camera...
I think that they shot it that he is...
Yeah, he's in the corner.
But I don't know all the... But I think he's... Like, it's almost sort of like a rear projection, like he's filmed on the forefront, looking into the, and then they place the... I believe that's...
Really?
Yeah.
Well, like,
that's even more impressive.
That's insane the way that they shot this, right?
And, like, shit like that. I don't know how they did the bit with the sheet. Because, like, it didn't seem like stop motion. I don't know, like, what, like, technique they used for that, which is very...
You mean the one that strangled the guy?
Yeah.
I could see the fishing wire.
Oh, you saw the fishing wire? Okay.
But you know what? That's the thing is, it doesn't... Like, to me, there's a charm about that.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face facts. We're watching this in HD now. It wasn't meant to be seen in HD.
No.
So, but even then, even seeing the fishing wire, I mean, when it goes around his neck, there is some good effect manipulation on that. And you know what? The simplest tricks often are the most effective. So, and I do like the arms. I'm sorry. Yeah,
you love the arms
because, as I said, as a kid, the boogeyman of my dreams always had these long, waving arms, and to me, when I saw that, I was like, "Holy fucking shit!"
John Slenderman. as I call him.
It kind of reminded me of Fantastic Four with Miles Teller, and he had the braces for his arms.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It reminded me too much of Josh Trank.
Well, like, there's this whole like Slender Man thing, like, has its roots in like this type of shit, and like the just elongated body parts that are super fucking creepy, and like, you know, you saw that to a degree with the long arms and
as a long, lanky, tall, lanky man.
It's a long-limbed man.
I honestly confuse Ian for Slender Man very often.
But yeah, like, practical effects are always, especially done well, are always going to get a 1 from me.
Yeah.
What I actually really appreciated with this movie, especially on the rewatch tonight, was that in later Friday the 13th, the dream sequences are set pieces for the kill. I actually think they blend reality and dream very well.
I'll give you that
to the
for sure.
point where it's at times people were getting frustrated. Why are they acting this way? Or why are they? Well, it's dream logic.
Because it's still in the dream. Yeah.
Like, why are you following a body being dragged in the distance? Because that's what you do in a dream.
Mm.
You don't have that rational control, even if you think you do. And I think that every choice by Nancy in this, especially her poor choices, can be chalked up to her existence in both reality and dream.
Yeah.
And the fact that you don't know at points,
yeah,
I think means it's a well-crafted film.
I completely agree with that, and I 100% love the idea of, like, you don't actually know at any given point what's this. Theoretically, this entire movie could be a dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, inside of a dream that, like, Freddy Krueger has, like, concocted. And,
especially the ending. It could be just a kind of recurrence of him torturing
well,
these
that's the
people.
idea. Like, so you're supposed to know that the ending is, like, Freddy Krueger, like, somebody is sleeping. But who is sleeping? Is it her mother? Is it her? Is it, like, so, like, there's this whole interesting thing that's going on throughout.
Assuming it's her mother, since she was the one that was attacked. Yeah, it was Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I mean,
True.
It could be her mother, but like but the idea is, like, because it's the end of the movie, it should be her, right? So, like, there's this whole thing, like, is her mother being attacked through her, or, like, whatever. But whatever, that's another story for another day. What we're gonna move on to right now is recommendation, and Chris, why don't you tell us whether you recommend it or not?
Okay, first of all, I'm giving Style a 1. I don't think I ever. because
I thought styles were 1s all around.
Okay, I just want to make sure. But
Scott laughed at that.
Yes,
by the way.
off camera. What's really funny is I haven't seen this film in a really, really long time, and it made a huge impression on me as a kid. And as I said, this is my favorite of the series. To what everybody say, I'm like, watch the first one, watch the third one, and those are my two favorites. And I definitely recommend this because there's a lot to be appreciated about this film. There's a lot to be learned watching this film. And while I did see its weaknesses more now, I saw its strengths so much more now. Like, whatever weaknesses are kind of like, okay, yeah, there's the weaknesses I remembered, but the strengths and us talking about it makes me appreciate this film even more. I'm giving it a very, very strong recommendation.
I also am going to give it a very strong recommendation. You have a villain whose power is derived from something that every human being has: nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing more terrifying than that. Where if you have a nightmare, it affects you and you can die in real life. It's like a primal fear that every person will have.
It's got that Invasion of the Body Snatchers thing where it's like, you can't go to sleep or you'll be taken.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, there's nothing more horrifying than, like, everybody needs sleep, and that's the one thing that's the hardest to control.
Yeah. Like, you could, like, there's very little you can do to escape this guy, and that makes for a great villain, a powerful villain, and a great premise for a movie. And also, it's like the godfather of a lot of tropes.
Yeah.
So, definitely recommending this one.
So, this is interesting. Maybe something I should have mentioned in style, perhaps, but, like, I agree with you. Sleep is something that everyone needs to do, but perhaps not as much as they did it in this movie.
No,
Everyone's, like, falling asleep every fucking 5 minutes. It was like, oh, hold on, that there is a murderer who's stalking you through your sleep.
Johnny Depp didn't know that.
That's true, but he was warned several times.
But he's Johnny Depp.
He was like, his girlfriend was like, "Please don't fall asleep," and he was like,
he's also,
and then she got like cut while he fell asleep, and she was like, "Why the fuck didn't you wake me up?" And then she was like, "Please, please,
she got cut.
Just stay awake."
She got cut in the hospital.
That's true.
So did they explain like what sport he was in?
No,
Doesn't matter.
It's just jock.
But let me can I
Jock number 1.
Can I please
It does matter.
So the first time she fucking freaked out that he fell asleep, and the second time, so this happens again, and she's like, "Please, all I want from you as my boyfriend, the only thing I ever ask of you is to stay awake until midnight, as a 17-year-old boy, right?" And every 17-year-old guy in the world is like, "I'm not falling asleep before 1:30 in the morning," and he was like, "Sorry, I can't make it past 11:30. No, sorry." She called him at like 11:40. She was like, "Just stay awake until midnight."
20 minutes was like a big time frame.
Just stay awake until midnight.
And this,
I need you to come outside and like watch over me at midnight to make sure I don't die. And he was like, "Sorry, babe, I can't make it to 20 minutes from now." Mm-hmm. So he falls asleep and, for a good reason, gets completely fucking destroyed by Freddy Krueger, who pulls him into the bed and like blasts his blood onto the ceiling. And he fucking deserved that. However, I will give this movie a good recommendation. I think that it does a good job as an intro to a story. Probably, I think I've only seen this and the third one. The third one's pretty good.
You saw New Nightmare. We reviewed it.
Oh, and New Nightmare. And Freddy vs. Jason I've also seen. But,
so you've seen half
theaters.
Is that half of them? I feel like that's like 1/8 of them. I've seen 3 of the movies. I feel like there are like 14 fucking Freddy movies. Doesn't matter. Hold on. Go through it. Figure it out. We'll come back to you. But
8 movies.
I will give this movie credit. It does a good job of like coming in to a horror movie franchise, and obviously like it has to, right? Like there's a reason that people remember Freddy. There's a reason that people love Nightmare on Elm Street as like a horror series, and I'm going to give it a recommendation. I think that you should watch. If you're into horror movies, you should watch this. Like, obviously, this is one of the, like, goalposts of watching horror movies. This and Friday the 13th and Halloween. And, amongst a couple others. This is one of the ones that really got the, like, I don't know, I'll call it teen horror genre going. And I think it's a pretty solid intro to that type of movie. So I'm going to give it a 1.
9 movies counting the reboot.
Sure.
That's why I wasn't counting. Unless they made a sequel. I don't think they made a sequel to that one.
No, they didn't.
Surprised.
I love Nightmare on Elm Street. Watch Freddy. Although I do happen to like Last House on the Left better. I think it's Wes Craven's best film because it's the most experimental one.
Well, it's
experimental in the sense of not how he was experimenting with meta commentary, but actually like kind of running around a house with a chainsaw in the socks.
You like
with
it?
fake blood on
The best is running around his house in a chainsaw. With the
Last House on the Left was inspired by, or a loose remake of Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring.
Yeah.
Hey-oh.
There's a lot of things about Freud and sexual violence. Very interesting. But anyway, recommendation. Watch it.
One's all around a recommendation. So that is going to bring us to the end of this episode.
Thank God.
We are all going to give it a 7. We have gone.
Wait a minute. I thought I gave it an 8.
No.
Or did I give it a 7?
You give it a 7.
Because I gave one thing that you guys didn't give. I gave supporting a 1.
That's correct. Oh, I'm sorry. You did give it 8. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So it's a 7.25, not a 7. I apologize, Chris. I don't mean to sell you short. So it's 7.25. It's
I just didn't want to do that.
Chris has given it a 1 on supporting, where we did not, because he thought that the supporting characters were a little bit stronger, and we thought they were a little bit weaker.
That's how that works.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it goes. So it's a 7.25 aggregate score. Nightmare on Elm Street for MOTS-O-Ween this year, and I am going to top this off. I've been your host, mostly joined tonight by Jonathan Ian Manzer.
We forgot to mention the obviously fake Sleep Doctor. Oh, that.
Oh, that's true. With the chin thing that Beth brought up several times. Chris's wife, Beth, watches with us, and she was like, why does she have something strapped to her chin? And we couldn't figure out the reason.
Zeta waves.
I've also been joined tonight by Richard Maurice Perry.
Sleep well. That sounds creepy. I'm sorry.
And Chris, no middle name, Morgan.
Nighty night, don't let the bed bugs bite. If you see them on the wall, take a spoon and eat them all.
Have a good night.
Delicious.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.